Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the December 10th, 2024 meeting of the Board of Education for Arlington Heights School District 25. I call this meeting to order. The first order of business tonight is the public hearing on the tax levy. The tax levy information was presented at the November meeting. And so first I want to ask if we have any members of the public here to speak as a part of the public hearing on the tax levy. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to turn to Ms. Malik, who has a presentation to share this evening on the tax levy. Stacy?
Thank you. Just as a refresher of what we talked about at the last board meeting. Thank you. The property taxes make up the largest portion of our revenue budget. 83% of the school district's revenue come from local property taxes. There was a new law enacted that's effective with this school year that requires that we present this information in terms of the reserves we have in 3 of our operational funds. What's ironic about this is we actually have 9 different funds that overall our board has a goal of 40 to 60% fund balance levels, but this law requires that we look at just these 3 funds and that we look at an average of the last 3 years' expenditures as compared to the fund balance available, and if that fund balance to average expenditure ratio exceeds 2.5 times, so 250%, then we would be required by the state to implement a reserve reduction plan. However, we are well below that 250%, as you can see. The tax levy that the board will be voting on tonight is based on a CPI of 3.4%, which is a limit of which we can increase the tax levy by every year. It's the CPI. And projected new growth of 0.7%, so our anticipated maximum allowable levy would be $87.2 million. So we always levy for slightly more to make sure we capture everything that's available to us, knowing that the actual property tax extension will be capped at the county clerk's office. What's important to note is last year, the board did take action to abate $1.9 million of our bond and interest levy to reduce last year's impact on the taxpayer. So the increase this year looks higher, but that's because last year was actually reduced by $1.9 million. And for the taxpayers, what's important to note is that the increase in the tax levy doesn't mean every single bill increases exactly the same. In a perfect world, it would. But because every property is assessed with its own value, and in many cases, properties might see increases in values or decreases if they file for assessment reductions, then depending on what every individual property's value represents as a portion of the entire property in the whole district also affects what a taxpayer might see on their tax bill. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Stacy, for sharing that information. I now close the public hearing at this time. So with that, we will move to our regular agenda for our meeting here on December 10th. So first, thank you to everyone that's joining us tonight, both in person and virtually. Before we begin, I want to share that our meetings are when the school board conducts its business and are open to the public. Because we are an elected governmental body, we can only take action by majority vote in a public meeting like this one you're attending. We welcome the public to listen and observe, and we have community input sections on the agenda if you have questions or comments about the business of the board. With that, again, I call the regular meeting to order. And Ms. O'Brien, if you would please call the roll.
Neerman? Jogi?
Here.
Scapalato?
Here.
Michael?
Here.
Cerniglia? Faso?
Here.
Thank you, Lana. Please stand if you are able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, well, as we know, we have so many things to celebrate in District 25, and for our board members, this is one of the favorite parts of our agenda when we get to acknowledge all the great things going on in our district. So tonight, we're excited to recognize the South Middle School speech team that participated in the state contest. So Mr. Skim, if you'd like to come forward, and Dr. Kay and I will move out to the front.
Okay, test, cool, awesome. When we first heard we were being recognized again this year, I know the kids begged. They were like, please let us be there for the tax levy speech. So, I'm so glad that they were here for that. So here at South, we have so many wonderful groups that our kids are able to be involved in within the arts. Last year, we were named by the Educational Theater Association a premier community for theater education, which is a national distinction for theater education programs across the nation. And we're the only school in Illinois that has received that distinction so far. And the speech team... Thank you. Our speech team here is part of that wonderful group of theater groups that these kids can join, and it's amazing just to see the dedication of all these students and just how much they care about being involved. I know how involved they are because I have to deal with all their conflict sheets. So they do pretty much everything they can at South, and it's amazing. Our first year we had 7 kids on speech team. Our second year we had 25. This year we had 35. So we have grown every single year, and it's amazing to see them bring their friends, sometimes more willingly than others, to bring just more community into our group. And this wouldn't be possible, of course, without the support of the board, without the support of Dr. Jim Morrison, our principal, who this is his last year, and without the support of our parent booster group, the SMS Theater Booster Group. So we're hoping that as we continue into finding a new principal, that we can have someone who is just as supportive of the arts here at South, and that these kids can continue to thrive here in SD 25. So thank you again for supporting them in something that, you know, some people tend to overlook, the arts. Here in SD 25, we have so many wonderful groups that just down the street that they don't have this sort of opportunity. So it's amazing that they can do that here. Thank you so much.
I mean, that would be the reason, yes.
Of course, of course.
If you know this president.
That's it. I kind of do. Okay, so we're going to call y'all up. They have a little gift for you for all the work you've done and all the time you had to spend listening to about taxes. So we have a couple kids who are not here today. I'm still going to say their name just so they can be recognized, but when I say your name, if you are here, please come on up and receive your little baggie here. I hear, yeah, it's a medium-sized bag. It's got a check for $1 million in it. I've got first Elizabeth Asper, Dylan Bunting, thank you. Ella Dimmick, you could stay up here, Ella. It's okay. Someone had to be the first one. Nathan Dodon, Amira Fatina, Cecilia Faust. Stella Foley. Chloe Gallagher. She's not here. She gets a pass. It's her birthday. It's fine. Matthias Gilliland. Silas Gonzalez. Caitlin Grund. Jack Hemela. I had to mess up on someone's name. I'm sorry. Emerson Henry. Natalie Jarris. Ellie Joyce. Emily Kelly. Archie Kordelewski. Kimmy Coles. Dia. I'm sorry. Lillian Miskovich. Annabelle Nelson. Alon Patty. Beatrice Pop. Kinsey Poyer. Julia Puccini. Claudio Rodriguez. Addison Salyards. Victoria Selpka. Tegan Simpson. Elizabeth Snyder. Sophia Spiropoulos. Nate Stallman. John Tice. Emily Warnament. And Eleonora Zaporowski. That's all of them. Yeah, that's them all. That's all the ones.
Gotta get you in the photo as well.
Oh.
Let's touch it up just a little bit.
My knees aren't good enough for that. Get the short one.
I'm not short. I'm 5'1".
You know, sorority squad. Sorority squad. Sorority squad. There you go.
Wait, what?
They know. They know what it is.
Stay here for a little bit. People want to get a photo.
You are magnificent. Yeah, it'll be a little bit later. Yeah.
I gotta say it.
Let's lift. Yeah? Oh, then you do. Greg. Greg, can I get your help? We're good. We're good. You go. We're good. We're good. I'll get it. I'll get it.
No, just take it off of the thing. If you take it off of the...
We're good. We got it.
Here. I got it. Back a little. Right there. Not that much. Yeah. There. Okay.
Hey, how are you?
congratulations to the speech team, and we will continue on with our regular meeting. So next up is our board communications, and first I will ask from my colleagues up here, any updates to share this evening?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple of updates. Last night I was able to attend the Village Board special meeting regarding the MOU with the Chicago Bears. Even though it doesn't relate to District 25, it was interesting because our neighboring school districts, High School District 214, District 15, and District 211, as we know, had requested this MOU as far as the taxes. So it was interesting, and the MOU was passed unanimously by the Village Board as a first step to further the conversation. And I was truly glad as a board member in a neighboring kind of partnering district to see that the time and attention given to consider that any redevelopment project would support students in our neighboring district. So it was an interesting meeting with emphasis on student care. So that was good to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Anisha. Any other updates?
Mr. President,
Yes, Kevin.
I know that the III conference is going to be a topic for a future board meeting for sharing, but since it took place between now and our previous meeting, I just wanted to share that several board members and members of the administration attended the conference in Chicago the weekend of November 22nd through 24th. It was my absolute honor and privilege to co-present with Dr. Jogi and Dr. Kay, and I want to thank both of them for their collaboration. It was definitely a very rewarding experience for me, and I hope it was also for the members of the audience when we presented.
Thank you, Kevin. Any others? Okay. All right. Well, thank you for those updates. And now, Kevin, we'll come back to you for our AdRed report, and Stacy as well.
All right, thank you. So on Friday, December 6th, the monthly AdRed meeting took place. I attended virtually via Zoom. It was a joint meeting with AdRed and the Northwest Suburban School Business Officials, or NWSSBO for short. We had guest speakers from Chapman Partners, and I am going to defer to Stacy in a moment to share any details from their presentation that she finds pertinent, since I know she will more accurately and concisely share that information. Just a couple of things from the director's report. Bridget Peach reviewed annual initiatives for AdRed, which I believe I have shared at previous meetings, but she did reiterate them at the meeting, which are upholding the state paid leave law, updating dual credit quality act for students. That really applies more to high school students than to K-8, and deprioritizing schools as polling places. She did give us a little bit of info on the veto session. There were two pension bills filed. They were identical, but one was filed in the Senate and one in the House, applying to the benefits that Tier 2 employees have to match compared to Social Security, and the discrepancy and disparities between Tier 1 and Tier 2 for educators in Illinois. So there was no real progress or movement in those bills, but it is something that is still definitely a topic of a lot of attention in the public education sector. The only other thing that she shared that I will mention is that they are anticipating for the 104th General Assembly, which will begin on January 8th. They're anticipating as many as 1,200 new bills to be filed compared to last year, in which there were somewhere in the mid-700s. Obviously, not all of those will be pertaining to education, but still a lot to be keep on our radar. Future events, the AdRed Legislative Dinner will be taking place on January 27th at Stevenson High School with a keynote by Noel Ellerson speaking on how the new federal government may impact state legislation in education. And the next member meeting will take place on February 7th and will be held via Zoom only. So I'm going to now kick it over to Stacy to share some of the financial information that was shared at the meeting.
Thank you. Wow. I mean, I knew my presentations aren't exciting, but it actually hear it stated publicly. So Chapman and Cutler did present on some legislation that passed this year, one of which is life safety bonds now can be issued by districts outside of PTEL, so they're not incorporated in the limit of the tax caps, and you don't have to have any debt service extension base available to issue those bonds. So very interesting. But that's only life safety bonds are only available for life safety work. So the idea is that the 10-year life safety survey that's required by the state and identifying all of the life safety needs that you have in your facilities then and are expected to improve or correct that now there was no real funding source to do that unless you had it approved through a referendum, so now, or through a debt service extension base with public hearings. Now that's actually outside of all of that. So that may help a lot of districts that have no debt service extension base available or have a hard time getting any voter approval to help them support their facilities. It accepts all voter-approved referendum bonds sold after November of 2024. So everyone who just had referendums approved at the November election, this applies to them. Those bonds are excluded from their debt limit. That may or may not. I mean, there's a variety. There's two different debt limits that we're subject to. We are not hitting either of ours. So depending on a level of bonds we possibly would ever do, we still may not be hitting that limit. So I don't know that this law benefits all districts, but certainly those that have lower debt limits or need for high levels of bonds. As we heard in the policy committee, this new law also eliminates a requirement for a referendum to build a new building or addition to a building if it results in an increase in space for pre-K or kindergarten spaces, if you don't need to issue bonds. So it allows, if you have reserves in the bank and have those dollars available to build that new space, that you do not have to go to voter referendum to get approval to do that or get that authority. Currently, the law was if you were going to build a standalone building, regardless of the purpose of it, you had to get voter approval to do so, irregardless of the financial source. So you possibly needed two referendums, one to actually get approval to build a building and then separately to sell bonds to do that. Now they're saying you don't have to get voter approval if you have the dollars available to do the building. It also increases the term of bonds from 20 years to 30 years and has some other miscellaneous benefits all related to bonds, which other than the $15 million that we're going to talk about tonight that was approved by voters, we are not anticipating any of this affecting us in the near future.
All right, thank you, Kevin and Stacy. And next up is our IASB report. And Anisha, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity to share. I'm going to add on to what my colleague Kevin had shared earlier. I want to thank you, a huge thanks to the District 25 team at large for shining bright at the State School Board conference hosted by the Illinois Association of School Boards, the Illinois Association of School Administrators, IASA, and the Illinois Association of School Business Officials, IASBO. And from District 25, about 10 school board members and personnel members were able to take advantage of learning, sharing, and growing together at this year's conference, which happens over the weekend before Thanksgiving. So it's definitely a busy time to get away from families and so forth. So truly grateful for the time that everybody took to be away from our families in service of our district and to learn during that time period. And truly, we continue to find that a district board learns together, leads together, grows together. It's truly beneficial. I leave the conference re-energized to support our district to continue to excel. I'll first begin reporting back about the delegate assembly. It was, it's always a kind of as a delegate, I go in. It was very organized. They did some tweaks to that that morning, and you'll find that the resolution decisions will be in your board docs if they already aren't. And I've shared them as a view-only doc, so you'll see that. It was a well-run and an efficient meeting, and it provides ISB. What that delegate assembly does, it provides ISB a list of topics to advocate for on behalf of its member districts like ours. And as far as the conference as a whole, there were 8,900 conference attendees, so it's one of the largest conferences for school boards, administrators, business officials, and there were 120 panel presentations. And as you know, our district was invited to present not at one, but at two Share the Success panels, which shows how brilliant we are. So we're very excited about that. And a huge kudos to Adam Harris, our head of communications and storytelling, who's out there, for bringing the house down. We heard all about it in his panel presentation titled, "And Now for Some Good News." He collaborated, and I love the collaborative spirit, he collaborated with Kane County Regional Office of Education and Deerfield District 109's Director of Communications. So thanks for collaborating, and we heard you still, you were the star of the show, so. Good. Thanks so much, Adam, for doing that. And I also, just like Kevin said, I also personally want to thank my board colleagues, Kevin Michael, and our superintendent, Dr. Brian Kay, for co-presenting with me. It was a lot of fun. It was truly meaningful, but a lot of hard work goes into it. And they both put in a lot of their own time for our planning and rehearsal meetings after work in the evenings. Thank you for taking that time away from your families. And they both did an incredible job presenting. Our presentation was well attended and well received with an engaged audience of school board members and administrators from around the state. The audience members asked thoughtful questions during and after the presentation. And I truly believe we were able to help attendees walk away with sparks of effective governance that will in turn support students across our great state. And our president also rejuvenated our own commitment to our district, so that was really cool. And a huge thanks to the joke prompted to laugh quickly. So that was really, so we appreciate that, that you were there. And I know we're just coming off the III conference, yet it's time for us to consider panel proposals once again for next year's conference. We're going to keep this trend going. We've been invited consecutively 3 times now, so we will keep going here. So if you have ideas, my board colleagues and administrators, on any topics that we can present on, I would love to hear the ideas. I'm looking at everybody in this room. And also at the January board meeting, board members are invited to share a summary of their learning for helping us collect our thoughts in a Google slide that we will present at the next board meeting of everything that we've learned and pass along to our district, and everything that we learn trickles down to the students in our district for the benefit of them. So thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Anisha. And our next report is for NSSEO, and Liz will ask you for that report.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. President. The biggest news from NSSEO is we've been working on the strategic plans. So last Tuesday and today, myself, Dr. Brian Kay, Diane Kafka, and Stacy Malik have attended with around 50 people from our member districts. It's been inspiring. It's been interesting. I've learned a ton. I'm impressed with the recommitment of our districts to come together to really serve our member district partner students who are also NSSEO students. So in a couple of months, I will have a plan to present to you. Just a little sneak peek. We're talking about facilities, instruction, governance structure, staff, all the good things. And I think you'll see a lot of our values here mirrored in that strategic plan as well. So I look forward to giving more about that in the future. Also, at our last meeting, we had an audit report. There was nothing significant. It was accepted. And then in January, NSEO is providing all member districts, special ed staff with an institute day where they'll have 25 to 27 sessions. So some of our staff may be attending that, lots of neat stuff and learning, and once again coming together. So I'm thankful for the opportunity to be a member of that board, to really see how our community districts all come together with a common goal. So thank you for giving me that opportunity.
Thank you, Liz. We've now arrived at our community input section of the agenda. If a member of the public wishes to address any item on tonight's agenda, please complete one of the blue forms provided on the table just outside this room and hand the card to Lana O'Brien. If you could please note on your card if you wish to speak now at the first community input opportunity, or if you would wish to speak later should we have a second community input opportunity. We do have a blue slip, so I will share the following with you. The opportunity to speak to the board is provided for members of the public who have a comment to make about the business of the board. The board appreciates hearing from stakeholders and values their thoughts and questions. Public input can be helpful to the board as we strive to make the best decisions for our district. In order for the board to reserve sufficient time to conduct its business and operate its meeting in the spirit of civility and decorum, speakers are expected to adhere to the following guidelines. Number one, address the board only at the time provided on the agenda and only after being recognized by the board president. Number two, identify yourself and please be brief. Your comments will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. The board may shorten this allowed time in order to allow the maximum number of people the opportunity to speak. And three, please be respectful and courteous. The board requests that you not make statements that are personally disrespectful or condescending to members of the board or our staff. Just so everyone's aware, the board typically does not respond to comments or attempt to answer questions during the public comment period, but be assured we do listen intently and appreciate the input from our community. And as always, if you have included your email on the form, someone will get back to you regarding any questions or concerns you bring up. So our first comment, and possibly our only comment this evening, Mr. Boudreau, if you could please step forward. Welcome, Mr. Boudreau.
I got a lot to say, and I got a lot to say in 3 minutes. I'm not sure I'm going to get to everything, but first is the bond, $15 million bond. I don't think you should move it up 5 months. There's no real reason to do that. Particularly, it's $300,000 in interest. I think if you wait till August, you'll probably get a lower interest rate, which will be over probably 30 years as opposed to 20 years. No, maybe 20 years. So that's it. As far as the 5-year projections, I noticed that 2025 and 2026 have been reduced to $7,864,500 from in December 2022, when you said you were going to spend $13,229,500. So you've reduced it by $5,365,000. So I assume that's because you're over budget of at least that amount. And I noted that primarily funded from Bill 25 bonds, which means probably that $5,365,000 is a lower number than it actually is. So I've been following all of the money that's being spent on the kindergarten expansion. From February 24th, 22 to 12/10/2024, you've coded $66,166,356.96 to bond capital. But the interesting part is I noted, because I asked for the bills from Frank Cooney Furniture, that you spent $1,813,364.40 on furniture, yet you only coded $1,020,025.40 to the bond capital. The others went to operations and management. I'm not exactly sure why that is. But what's interesting is you estimated $500,000 for furniture, so you've doubled on the bond capital and tripled overall. You've still got about $2 million in outstanding bills on the 2023 capital project, so that'll bring this up to about $68 million. I've been trying to get the amount of the kindergarten expansion. I think I've backed into it. It was $37,188,528. You had told us in the referendum it was going to be $32,086,375. So it's a $5 million increase. That's a 15.8% increase. You also estimated that the utilities would be about $37,000 in a year. Well, I just looked at the bills for your electricity for October. It was $123,967. That was a $66,000 increase over last year. Dryden doubled, Patton and Westgate tripled. Your copier lease went from $3,300 a month to $5,200 a month. I thought you had a Midland paper thing, so why are you spending money with Staples? So I think I said it was $20 million that you were over budget last year. I think that number's probably pretty close, and I'll be watching this. At least somebody will be watching this. And I really hope the suburban tax watchdog from the Daily Herald and the Herald Reporter follow up on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Appreciate it. Oh, by the way, Merry Christmas.
The next section on our agenda is the communication from district partners. We don't have a PTA report tonight, so we're going to go right to our ABC 25 Foundation report. And so, Gina, if you could share that.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, ABC 25, first and foremost, Stacy, if you could extend a really big, huge thank you to Beth. So we are in execution mode, and all of the teachers are very busy working with Beth to place their POs so that they can get all of the wonderful things that their grants that have been awarded to them can be collected so that the students can benefit from it in their classroom as soon as possible. In addition to that, like I said a couple of months ago, we have shifted. We're now in fundraising mode. So we are very busy planning our fun fair. Look for more information to be coming out on that very soon. We are seeking anybody in the district with connections. We're looking for connectivity to business owners and to sponsors, as well as people who like to fundraise and would like to join in the fun of helping us with the fun fair and with planning and with raising money for our district. The last thing I want to call out is that the last grant of the year is the school grant. So every school that attains 25% of their family population membership, or family and educator membership, Allison, when the school attains 25%, the school is granted back $2,500 for which they can spend at their leisure on whatever is needed for the student population. At this particular point in time, I'm happy to report that 2 of our 9 schools have attained this goal. And so we are working on the others. And I can also offer that one school is 3 members away from attaining theirs. So it's sign up. So it's coming, and we're doing a lot of really good stuff. And it's a very exciting time. And remember that all of the money we raise is raised with the intent to give it 100% back to the schools in one form or another from a grant perspective, whether or not it goes to the teacher or the school grant. So that is my update for ABC 25 for right now, and more to come on the fun fair.
Great. Thank you so much, Gina. And we'll welcome Allison Berg for our monthly ATA report. Welcome, Allison.
Thank you. I may or may not have my own fan club here this evening. Just saying. Oh, it's fun. Thank you, guys. Good evening, and I always enjoy having the opportunity to talk about what is going on in the schools around the district. In case you don't know, we have some of the very best teachers that work here in District 25, and I'm about to prove it to you. Let's go through Spotlight on the Schools. So we'll start with Dryden. Dryden's 4th graders are growing lettuce and basil with the LMC as they study farming. Thanks to Food Services for bringing up the hydroponic garden and helping with the planting and the harvesting. They cannot wait for the salad party next week. Katie, a 2nd grade teacher over at Ivy, asked me to share that she and her mentor have been observing each other and have learned a lot of new strategies and ways of teaching from it. She says it's exciting to see something new and then implementing it. Kind of a nice thing to share. From Olive Mary Stitt, here we go. Students have been sharing their Shelfie of the Month posters. Each month, a student in each classroom is selected to share information about their favorite books, genre, and what they are reading now on a Shelfie of the Month poster, which is then displayed on the LMC checkout desk. Students are selected by showing good character and doing the right thing in the LMC. Also, students at Olive can find books in the LMC with a hidden golden ticket inside. Where's my golden ticket? There we go. There's our golden ticket. There are 20 hidden golden tickets throughout the collection in books that have not been checked out for a while to encourage students to try reading a new genre or a nonfiction topic, which is pretty cool. 7th graders at Thomas have been having fun in the LMC with the help of Dr. K. Hey, can we roll that clip, please? Thanks. A little help from Dr. K on this one.
Please excuse the interruption. This is your superintendent, Dr. Brian Kay. As the snow continues to fall, for the safety of our students and staff throughout the district, we have been ordered to shelter in place. Rumor has it that one of the library gnomes has a decent escape plan, but he is up to his usual shenanigans and is hiding. For those students lucky enough to be in the library, I understand there may be some clues left behind as to where you can find him. Should you find him, please let us know if he has a viable plan.
Thank you. Anytime. I got you. I got you. At first, when I was playing it, I was like, wait, what's going on here? I'll show you the gnome. Anyways, the 7th graders at Thomas were having fun. With the help of Dr. K, they have a fun challenge around a shelter-in-place situation due to a winter storm. ELA students are going to work together to solve literary puzzles to break out of the LMC. With the help of one of their library gnomes who is hiding, there he is, who is hiding. The first team to win the gnome wins and hopefully gets us all out of the LMC and on our way home. So thanks, Dr. K. That probably brings a lot of fun to the LMC over at Thomas. The Special Olympics was held last weekend at Niles West High School. I'm sure they have their own presentation, so I'm not actually going to say much, but I have a ton of pictures. Congrats to all the athletes and the teachers and the parents who made this event possible. It was a huge success, and here are some of the pictures of our athletes at that event. So much fun had by all, and I know like at Windsor, all the teachers, we all have our all-star shirts, so we like help to support them on the Friday before, so it's just a really cool event, as I'm getting a phone call on my phone at the same time. Here's a few more. They're really cool. Yeah, fun. We have it now twice. It used to be only the spring. Now we have a winter and spring event, right? Yeah, we increased. Yeah. 3rd grade students from Windsor attended the Nutcracker at the Center for Performing Arts in Schaumburg last Friday. South 7th grade basketball team won their sectional game and advanced to the state finals. They'll be playing for 3rd place this Thursday. South also collected 1,676 food items for the Wheeling Township Food Pantry. I believe that was through Student Council. Here's a picture of the Nutcracker students having a good time. Students at Windsor actually are growing their bowling skills and working with others during their bowling unit during PE. Here's a picture of some of our awesome bowlers. Greenbrier has had a very busy fall. 1st through 3rd graders danced with author Rika Rajan and learned about her new series on a family helping rescue people during disasters. The early childhood and kindergarten students learned what to do when they are scared from the author Lisa Katzenberger. And in addition, 3rd graders participated in virtual meetings with meteorologists from the National Weather Service while they were doing their severe weather research. 4th and 5th graders recently finished up their debates and are moving on to coding and other fun activities. Here's a couple of pictures from Greenbrier. Moving on, Windsor Kinders have a snowflake design challenge in the LMC this week. Here's a few photos of them working on their snowflake designs. At Dryden, technology facilitator Maria and LMC director Beth have teamed up again to bring every student at Dryden a coding experience this week. This year, the inspiration were the books Washed Ashore by Kelly Krull and Ducks Overboard by Marcus Modem, which bring awareness to the problem of ocean pollution. They watched real-life ocean cleaning robots and then got to code their very own. And that's some pictures of those students at work with their coding. They're coding things. The things that they use to code. There's a name for it, and I can't think of it right now. What are they called? I don't know. Okay, gizmos or whatever they are. All right, 5th grade students at Windsor are buddies with students with a class at Fudabukai. This week, students from Fudabukai came to visit Windsor and spent a day with their buddies. Actually, it was today. 5th graders will then have the opportunity to visit Fudabukai, I think in January, later this year. It's an awesome opportunity for our students. Ms. Pinsky is the partner teacher who teaches next door to me, and she's been involved with Fudabukai since the year 2000. So we've been partners with them for a long time. It's a really cool opportunity. Here are some pictures from South's ILP bowling field trip and holiday feast. A few of my old Windsor peeps in these pictures, which is so fun to see. Okay, and then finally from Dryden, how can we be safe during severe weather? This was one of the questions that 3rd graders answered during their group research projects. They worked in teams of 3 or 4 students to learn about types of severe weather or natural disasters such as blizzards, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, and tsunamis. Then as a team, they pretended to be news show staff members in videos that they created. Their goal was to teach others about their type of severe weather, and the 3rd graders were really excited to share their videos with 2nd graders. So can we roll that one video? There we go. Breaking news. Here they go.
Welcome to Channel 14. We have breaking news. A tsunami has been seen in Japan. Tsunamis are very powerful. They are caused by underwater volcanoes or earthquakes moving ocean water. They can even break bridges. They can cause so much destruction. Stay away from them. The tsunami has caused damage to a bridge. Now over to you, Emmett.
Thank you, Coraline. I'm Emmett. Now outside is 79 degrees outside. You might be wondering how this weather got started. Well, I'll tell you. They're caused by earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, or underwater landslides, or meteorites. When tectonic plates shift, they can form tsunamis. Now let's check in with our reporter, Anya.
I'm Anya, reporter on Channel 14. People who are outside right now are experiencing these conditions. Polluted water from gas and oil spills, tsunamis can even cause power outages by breaking power lines. The waves can destroy buildings and bridges. Debris can block roads. People cannot go to their jobs. Hello, Knox. Can you tell me what people can do to be safe in this type of weather?
Whoa, hi. There are physical ways to run away from a tsunami. At a beach, you start to see water sucking in really far. If you see this, go get to higher ground immediately. If there are rumbling sounds like trains moving or some rumbling like crumble, there is a chance it's probably a tsunami. Last, when you need to run away from a tsunami, read Natural Disasters on Tsunamis. Bye.
He's wearing a vest.
We hope that you enjoyed our report. This is Channel 14 signing off. Bye.
All right, that's it for my report. Thank you so much for allowing me the privilege to share all the awesome things going on around in the district. Happy holidays to you all, and I'll see you next month. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Yes.
You can go.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Allison, you know, the beginning of the meeting is, of course, our celebration, but every month you're bringing celebrations about the learning in the classrooms and giving us that window. So thank you for all the time to put those together.
You're welcome. This
Yeah.
month I had a lot. It was awesome. So many cool things going on. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Our next agenda item is the consent agenda, which is an action item. Can I have a motion, please?
Mr. President,
Yes, Kevin.
I recommend that the Board of Education approve those items on the consent agenda as follows. A, personnel report and addendum to personnel report. B, invoices. C, regular and closed session meeting minutes of November 12th, 2024.
Thank you, Kevin. A second, please. Thank you, Gina. Lana, if you could please call the vote.
Neerman? Jogi? Scapalato,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Cerniglia, Fossil.
Yes.
Thank you, Lana. The motion carries 6-0. We're going to make a slight adjustment, possibly, to our agenda. So I want to ask the board if there's any objections to moving the facilities management agenda item prior to the business agenda items. Does anybody have any objection to that? We'll hear from Ryan first, if that's okay. Looks like we're good to go with that. So welcome, Ryan, to the board table. And I'm going to scroll down to where we talk to you. There we go. Okay. And of course, this is an information item. And Ryan, you're going to talk to us about the 5-year capital plan. So please.
Thank you very much. Good evening. I'm here to talk about the 5-year facilities master plan. Again, this is kind of our roadmap for how we're going to care for the facilities going into the future. So looking at the next 5 years in particular and how we're going to allocate projects to certain buildings, what we're looking for, and how we're going to address needs across the district. First slide I wanted to go through is just our typical slide on how we try to prioritize items that will be going into the plan. So again, we're looking at safety items all the way down to enhancements. So these are typically the items and how we're trying to prioritize them and how they're going to be placed into the plan. Again, this is just a kind of a guideline that we use when developing the plan and where to place items into the plan, determining the most critical items first, right? So we're trying to make sure that we're taking care of safety items and then placing enhancements at the end. Not to say that enhancements won't come into the plan at some point. There are painting and other typical types of repair items that need to be done as well, and we try to filter those in when we can, when it fits into the plan to our advantage when we're looking at those types of items. The next several slides, again, are kind of a carryover from the last couple of years. So I'm not going to spend too much time on these, but it's really to highlight the success we've had in the last couple of years through Build 25 and the years prior on completing some of these items that we've had on our list for a while. So a lot of these items, again, were carried on our plan for a number of years. The referendum money with Build 25 allowed us to kind of complete a lot of these items that were kind of sitting there in limbo without proper funding sources, so we were able to complete a lot of these. I do still have a few of the items on there that I think we need to address in the future. That's not all inclusive. A good point would be like Dryden. There's plenty of items yet still for Dryden to complete. This is, again, just highlighting some of the key ones that were completed in the past couple of years. And again, we're trying to put these in the right spot in our overall plan, again, when we're looking at the whole portfolio and how to address items going into the future. So again, this is an all-encompassing list of items that need to be addressed, and I can go into that more here once we get further into the presentation. But again, it just kind of highlights some of the items we completed. I think one of the biggest ones is Westgate. That project did a lot for that facility in a lot of different areas for energy improvements and just general items in the existing building that need to be addressed, in addition to supporting full day K and relieving some of the enrollment stress of that building. So really want to highlight that one as one of the ones in particular that really was a great success from Build 25. Next one, just again the last slide, but I will go back and talk about these as needed at the end. Currently, we're projecting in our 5-year facilities plans approximately $24.6 million in capital expenditure over the next 5 years. The 25 and 26 projects in particular, we're anticipating to fund fully from the Build 25 remaining funds. Those numbers did go down some because we moved a lot of the projects up into the Build 25 projects that were completed in the last 2 years. So a lot of those projects, again, were moved up, and that's why the numbers for these 2 years have went down since the previous one, is it got moved up into the plan so we can complete them in conjunction with the Build 25 projects. So that's why these numbers went down considerably from the last presentation, the way it looks, but if you look across the 5 years previous, the numbers are very close. So we could address that at another meeting when we talk and reconcile the Build 25 budget and finances on those items, but just to give a quick synopsis on why these two numbers for the next 2 years are less. They're appearing less than were previously presented. For 2027 and beyond, we will need to talk about further funding sources on how that will be funded. Again, Stacy will have some ideas on that in the future on how those projects will possibly be funded. But again, we're trying to make this plan work within our total budget, but also making sure we're maintaining the facilities in a manner that's necessary and needed for well into the future. There's still a lot of items that need to be addressed, and that's okay. I think we want to have a stable plan. We don't want to have this huge lump where we have to address all these projects at one time. So I think we want to continue trying to fund these projects into the future at a stable amount that can support the district and our facilities at the same time, while not going overboard. I think we want to find that happy medium of where we want to continue spending money. So again, that's kind of my final comment on that with the recommended spending is looking at the whole picture, but also, again, making sure that we're properly funding facilities so we don't get into a spot where we have this big lump of deferred projects coming forward, and then we're really scrambling for money on how to fund projects for that into the future. Just a breakdown by trade, how they're breaking down. A lot of them are still HVAC driven. There's still plenty of items for air handlers and boilers and things like that across the district that'll be coming through. Lighting is still an issue that we want to continue to address across the district, is LED lighting enhancements at a number of schools, Thomas, Windsor, Ivy Hill, Dryden, all in the existing portion of the buildings. So those are, again, the older classrooms. A lot of them haven't been touched since the mid-90s. So they're starting to come due. The lighting is starting to get obsolete. We're starting to have issues finding ballast and parts and components for some of these fixtures. And LED is just so much better. We get dimmability and better light quality and performance with these fixtures. We've been putting them in since 2016, and we have almost no breakdowns with these light fixtures. They have been amazing. The maintenance on them is so much better. So want to keep looking at energy efficiency. Ceilings would go in conjunction with that, so we could open up the space. We need to get space and access to install the lighting. So the ceilings are in need of replacement too. They do age. I know nobody really looks at them, but they do age, and they start falling apart and things like that. So we want to address some of those items at the buildings as well. So that, the yellow pie with the special project lighting pretty much entails that. When it's a special project, I usually try to blend like two things together. If it's just electrical, it stays in just an electrical field, but if it's a special project, then it's two or more trades together, and I usually try to pick the one that's driving it. So again, the yellow box there with the special projects lighting is primarily lighting replacements and ceiling replacements across the district. A number of schools still have, a couple of schools still have a few small areas of galvanized piping left. I know we've been talking about that for my entirety here. We're down to the last few. Ivy Hill has one of the rooms, one restroom left that has some galvanized piping. We still have some galvanized piping here. Minor and Rand are other facilities that still have a substantial amount of galvanized piping left. Otherwise, again, primarily focused on boilers and core components of the facilities. I do see, as you can see from this chart here on the right side, I see a number of items coming up at Thomas that will start needing to be addressed because it is a larger building. We did take care of some things back in 2017 with the additions that there. We really didn't touch the main core facility that much. We touched restrooms and some of the other spaces where the additions happened, but the core classroom spaces are starting to be in need of, again, lighting, ceilings, carpeting, painting, kind of those general kind of things, and as well as flooring at that facility. Flooring on the second floor is starting to show its age and really be in need of replacement coming up here in the near future. So as you can see, our major spends will be coming at Thomas, Rand, and Minor. Rand and Minor, those have all been projected for a number of years, so it's no shock that those numbers are starting to come in. Minor, we have the window replacement project coming up this summer for the second phase, so that'll be the second part of that project. And then we'll start getting into plumbing and other repairs at the facility, including HVAC upgrades. So right now their classrooms have unit ventilators that they're old. A lot of them are even original to the building. So the HVAC needs to be upgraded at that facility, and we'll be looking to partner with them for air conditioning in their classrooms as well. So they don't have air conditioning in the unit vent. They have kind of window units right now. So if you drive by, you'll see the window units that cool the rooms. But for their student needs and that, they'll be looking to add air conditioning to those spaces. This slide is just kind of showing the model that we put together a couple of years ago, showing the projected spend that the model kind of shows that we should be spending per year. That is the red bar again. That is $6.5 million. We've been carrying that same numbers through. Again, that is just looking at all of our assets and kind of just doing a straight line depreciation, I guess I would call it, or life cycle on it, on when the asset would fail. So again, that's assuming that the asset performs the way we would expect it. 30 years for certain items, 20 for others. It all depends on what they would expect. That doesn't mean that something can perform better and make that number go down or worse. I mean, that's not typical. We have been getting better typically than what would be expected on some of these items, but again, that's just a model to kind of benchmark against. I do want to note that that doesn't conclude anything right now from the additions or things like that, but I think that's fair because right now they're under warranty, they're new items, so they're not really, we don't have to really worry about it right now for the new additions, but at some point we'll need to include that into that number to make sure. So again, I think that's a number of years out before we'd have to blend that in, but that is something we need to be aware about into the future. I did put down on the bottom the general industry guidelines are about 2 to 4% of the value of your facilities. Typically, that's like a best-in-class what you would put forward for capital on the value of your facilities. So that would be an estimate between 9 and 18 million. That again, I would not use as too much. Again, that's a industry like top, and nobody ever matches that number. So I just, again, that's what a theory recommendation would be, but it's not typically realistic to hit that number. We are exploring a number of items across the district. Again, we've addressed a number of them at the bottom. Flexible learning spaces are still an item we want to look at. I think this is more supplemental at this point. It's more for vertical learning spaces like whiteboards, tack boards, things where students can get up closer and utilize. A lot of that can be addressed with furniture, but I know there's still an interest from teachers on other ways to look at that and implement it in the classroom. And it may be as simple as taking there's whiteboard surfaces that you can stick onto walls and putting that in the right spot. And that's low cost to no cost to us. So we just want to make sure we're tracking that and make sure that we're looking at those items just to be aware of. For an office reconfigurations, we do want to keep looking at that when it's available to us to do. We did do the Dryden front office recently for a reconfiguration, and we think it works out very well for that facility. We just want to keep looking forward to see if that's something we want to do across the district, or if it's something that we'll do, again, once major renovations would have to happen in our front office in a future date or down the line. And the last one I put on for now is LMC renovations. I think that the LMCs just need to take a look at. A lot of them, again, were built out in the 90s, had computer labs and other various spaces. So again, I think we just want to look at that. If we're doing any updates in there, if there's any easy changes we can make to make it more functional. Because again, a lot of the computer labs are no longer utilized. They're teaching spaces and things like that. So I think we just want to look at that a little bit. If we go in and paint and do carpet, if there's any other changes, reconfigurations that we'd want to look in there. And items in progress from past consideration, again, our LED lighting and ceiling upgrades, as I talked about, that's kind of carrying through. We've been doing that for a number of years now. So those are the high-level things. Again, I would bring forward the 2025 projects at a future meeting, a detailed list, a full list with our cost estimates, and that's when we'd seek for approval to go ahead and bid them and go out to bid and plan for those into the future. So again, this is just our projection for 5 years, but you'll have another chance to look at the 2025 projects at another meeting. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan, for putting all that together. I'll go to the board. Any questions from board members for Ryan? No? I just have one question, and thank you. There were a number of questions answered from the board, and the one I want to just talk more about here, and maybe this is Stacy, but that, you know, the board had expressed interest in setting aside funds, budgeting in such a way that we wouldn't have to go back to the taxpayer for 5-year capital plans, things like that. And so, and you offer an explanation. I wonder, is there more to say to that? I mean, you talked about, well, we don't have to go over that answer again, but just wanted to give you an opportunity to speak to that here in case there were any questions. And I would say that part of the reason we're talking about this first before the business and finance is because we're talking about abating, and so just looking for reassurance. We trust your recommendations, but if you could give us the color commentary on what's behind those recommendations.
Sure. And I will be bringing a 5-year financial forecast to the board at one of our next couple of meetings. And while I haven't publicly presented one, I do update a working model for myself constantly with every decision we make, just to look at kind of the long-term impact and make sure that, you know, that I can support that we're staying on track. Yes, we are continuing to set aside funds every year. As I've responded to the question, I believe my model shows, at least $2 million a year trying to set aside. That's like, the farther out we go, the less I'm going to project, because the less accurate it's going to be. But every year, as we don't spend contingency funds that are in the budget, or maybe have some unanticipated surplus, that we will then work towards contributing those to a capital project fund as well. I can confidently say that I think we will remain within our fund balance goals beyond the next 5 years without any concerns whatsoever, still being able to set aside funds and maintain the capital project plan that Ryan has presented. At the same time, I know I can't ever say we'll never do something again. But I think that financially we're in a place that gets us to where we would have some other options should some huge ticket needs arise. And one of that is being our debt service extension base, and the debt that currently exists under there will be paid off in 2031, I believe, or start to be. So that would be an opportunity if there is a need to look at revisiting those bonds or selling additional bonds where you can do it without raising taxes. It wouldn't result in a otherwise possible tax decrease that might occur if you didn't renew those bonds. That is a very common practice in many districts, is how they can fund their capital project needs. We are, I don't want to say lucky, and we're not in that type of situation. And as you've discussed, we are working towards planning our future and not trying to be able to build that pool of funds for those capital projects. But we also know that we face this need now because there was a ton of work done in '97, and it all came due at the same time. And so we can plan as best as we can, but we can't guarantee there's not going to be some time frame where there might not be some major needs that we just can't accommodate all at the same time, and then we just have to make decisions around that. But I don't see that in the near future. Like I said, I think we are, and it's my every intention to keep us in a stable financial condition and be able to fund our needs through our existing dollars.
Yeah, and thank you for talking through that. And I'll speak for myself. I mean, we all know things can happen, right? Like as you say, there's no guarantee, but just understanding that the best work is happening as you see it and as you see it, Ryan. And Stacy, is it fair to say then, like, we talked about the money that would be set aside, maybe $2 million a year. You mentioned the debt service extension, and then the other source is just our regular tax levy. Is that correct? I mean, like, if we look at all the things that would contribute to having what we need to do, capital improvements, is that
correct? And we are looking at, we just wrote again for the school construction grant that the board approved a couple weeks ago. I mean, we continue to look at those funding, any opportunities we have, which we are limited because we are a property-rich district. We don't qualify for as many grants and funding opportunities, but to the extent that we do and can get some of those extra funds in, we try to access those sources as well as rebates through the energy company that we've gotten some significant dollars from in the past when we do some of these lighting upgrades and everything. So those could be opportunities for some additional funds. We're anticipating some surplus revenue distribution from the TIF agreements in the village. It's still coming. It's been 12 months, but I've told to expect it within this fiscal year, but I have planned to dedicate those funds to the capital project fund as well. So again, it's all on our radar, and we're doing everything we can to put the resources that we can to build for the future, to build in the future for the future. while still managing and being able to maintain what we do and what we offer currently.
Yeah. Thank you, Stacy. I just have one more question for Ryan. I just want to kind of restate, make sure I understood it right. You were talking about just the intent of consistency in terms of addressing issues when you were showing us the 5-year, so would it be fair to say then the intent, hopefully it would work that way, that by doing that it helps lessen the chance of those big bumps, those big, not surprises, but rather that all of a sudden things come due at once, whether because of life cycle or, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're trying to reduce that volatility in our budget. Yeah. Like, we don't want that 1-year spike of 15 million per se, right? Yeah. We want to try to level this out as best we can, address some core facility items to maintain the facility in the future. Again, we still have aging buildings. I know we put a lot of money into them, but there's still some aging stuff that are in our facilities that we want to keep tracking and maintaining. So that's exactly what we want to try to do. Mm-hmm.
The only other thing I would add is we also are subject to changes in regulations and laws that when we have a 10-year life safety due next year. So we're going to have architects walk through the building and complete that report that has to get filed with the ROE, I believe. And they'll do it with the lens of what are the regulations now versus what they were 10 years ago that we have to consider if we do any repairs and things to our building. So those are unknowns as well. I mean, we're hopeful that we're not going to see a significant result in our life safety survey.
Yeah, kind of like Stacey's saying, we'll go through that next year. It's an extensive process to go through that. The architect has to prioritize items that are required A, B, or C. So required items down to kind of nice to haves. I don't anticipate like major stuff, but they will put things on there that have changed in code or something that it's been updated. One of the usual big ones are like site things with ADA compliance, but I anticipate we'll be very good with that because we've done so much site improvements at all these schools, almost everyone recently with these updates. So that wouldn't be a major concern. We have elevators, so some of those things are the ones that start adding up really quickly is ADA accessibility. Other than that, it's going to be code compliance issues for fire alarm and sprinklers and things like that they'll note if there's anything that's out of compliance.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate your forward thinking and the planning to keep it stable and set us up for success as we go forward. So thank you. I know there were no other questions. I just want to check again. No questions? Then we'll go on. Thank you, Ryan. So now we will go to the business and finance portion of the agenda. And the first thing we have is an action item for the adoption of the tax levy. Can I have a motion, please?
Mr. President?
Yes, Kevin.
I recommend that the Board of Education approve the resolution of Arlington Heights School District number 25, Cook County, Illinois, providing for the levy of taxes for the year 2024.
Thank you, Kevin. A second, please.
A second.
Thank you, Anisha. And Stacy, do you have anything to add to this item? Okay. Thank you, Stacy. And unless there's any questions from the board, we'll go right to Lana. If you could please call the vote.
Jogi,
Yes.
Scapalato,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Cerniglia,
Yes.
Faso,
Yes.
Neerman.
Yes.
Thank you, Lana, and the motion carries 6-0. We'll now go to another action item. It's a resolution for the abatement of the increase in the 2024 real estate tax levy. Can I have a motion, please?
Mr. President?
Yes, Kevin.
I recommend that the Board of Education approve the resolution directing the Cook County Clerk to abate the increase in the 2024 real estate tax levy due to Section 18233 of the Property Tax Code.
Thank you, Kevin. A second, please.
A second.
Thank you, Anisha. And Stacy, if you could walk us through this item.
Yes, just to refresh the board, a couple of years back, I think effective with the 2021 tax levy, there was legislation passed that allowed for what we refer to as the recapture levy. And what it does is automatically add to a district's tax extension the amount of property tax refunds that were issued in the prior year through PTABs and objections. It automatically gets added unless a taxing body takes action to choose to abate those dollars. So while we did access those funds in the first year, since that time, this board has made a conscious effort to not to abate those funds and not add that additional cost on to the tax bills. And at this point, I am recommending that we continue to do so with this resolution.
Okay, thank you, Stacy. Any questions from the board? Okay. Right. So seeing none, Lana, if you could please call the vote.
Scapalato,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Cerniglia,
Yes.
Basso,
Yes.
Neerman,
Yes.
Jogi.
Yes.
Thank you, Lana, and the motion carries 6-0. And I think it's worth noting for us and the public, it was provided in information to the board, but with that vote and the other abatement we did last year, so since 2022, we have voted to abate the 3.7 million worth of taxes. So I think that's worth noting in the record. All right. Next is an information item, and Stacy, this is still under your area, so if you could share with us about the review of the bond issuance plan.
Yes, actually, Elizabeth Hennessy from Raymond James is here to walk us through a presentation.
Thank you and welcome.
Just to remind the board that when the referendum passed, we did intend and plan to do the bond sale in 2 installments, the larger one up front and then a smaller one in 2025. So while initially I had expected maybe in the fall of 2025, in looking at the contracts that we have approved, and for those board members who, if you need a refresher, the March board meeting, we did a construction finance update, and we did issue contracts in excess of 60 million because we added the Pat and Gym, and we moved some of those contracts, capital projects from 25 and 26 forward to capitalize on the construction that was already going on, as well as we want to be able to fund these upcoming summer projects in 25 and 26. So in working with Liz and looking at our options and the cost of the interest versus the additional interest we can earn, Liz and I are in agreement that we are recommending that we sell the bonds earlier in the year than I had otherwise anticipated, and Liz will walk us through that.
Thanks, Stacy. Thanks for having me. So I'm going to start with a bond market update. So what this chart shows is our historical AAA municipal market data interest rate. That is the average of all AAA very large districts that are priced every day. So this index is kind of like the Dow Jones average in the stock market. So you see what it is every day. And the blue line represents each yield on the yield curve going from years 1 to 30 of where that AAA MMD rate is on average. So you can see in year 1 it starts under 2%, and in year 30 it's up over 4%. That we refer to as the yield curve for municipal bonds. The red line is where we are now, and you see the short-term rates in the municipal bonds are elevated, and that is really due to the whole treasury market and the Fed funds rate being elevated from the 11 rate increases we experienced with the Fed over the last several years. We have so far this year, starting in September, had reductions of 0.75%. We do expect the Fed to reduce in December by another quarter point, assuming everything goes well with the CPI release, which happens tomorrow. So those rates are going to start coming down in the short term. But you can see starting in year 5 and later, the rates currently are lower than the 30-year historic average. So at the bottom, you can see the high and lows, and the point here is that we are lower than we have been on average in terms of interest rates. This is just the change we've seen from November 1 of 23 to 24. So the market builds in the anticipated rate decreases, and you can see along the yield curve we've really come down over 1% in many spots, but right around 1% since a year ago. So now I want to look at your debt and just review your debt limit. There is, as Stacy mentioned, there's two debt limits. The statutory debt limit is 6.9% of the EAV. Subtract outstanding principal of bonds, you're at 78.9 million. And then when we look at your working cash limit, this refers to non-referendum working cash bonds, which include the 17 and 18 issues, and that limit is 46 million. Here's the three issues you have outstanding. Most recently, the 2022 issue, which generated the 60 million, which was the first bond issuance in the referendum, and that was issued in September of 2022. Those bonds are callable on December of 2031, and what that means is, you know, our home mortgages, we can refund those at any time. Municipal bonds cannot be refunded at any time, only on the call date and thereafter. And the reason is investors in municipal bonds want to make sure they get their interest payments for at least 9 or 10 years. So that's why you see the call dates on all these bonds are out about 9 years later. And the callable bonds are those that are highlighted in the gray. So the 2018 bonds, those are non-referendum working cash bonds used for capital projects. They're callable in the 2027. And the 2017s are callable December 15 of 26. Okay, so that is going to be the next opportunity you have to refund bonds for savings. So just, again, this is a summary of those call dates, and just to give you a little heads up for that next callable bond, the 2017s in December of 26, that is going to produce savings based on where interest rates are now. And it's substantial. It's a 1.5 million, and we look at that savings, at present value savings, as a percent of the bonds refunded, and that is 8.17%. We look for that ratio to be over 3%. So this is a great refunder. Wish we could do it now. We can't, because in 2016, when former President Trump enacted the 2017 corporate tax law, he took away the ability to advance refund tax-exempt bonds. So that means we got to wait for the call date, because refunding them on a taxable basis would not produce savings because those rates are much higher than tax-exempt rates. So just giving you a heads up, 2026, I'll start bothering Stacy about this in the summer, because the resolution to refund those bonds, assuming the savings are still there, is something that needs to happen about 90 days before that call date. So here's just a sensitivity on that refunding. So as we mentioned, we've got the savings of 1.5 million, 1.4 million present value, and we see plus or minus 25 basis points. Okay, so now let's talk about the referendum financing plan. So sorry the numbers are small up there, but the green bars represent the payments on the 60 million referendum bonds. The dark blue line bars represent the payments on the proposed 15 million, the remainder of the authority of the 75 million approved by the voters in spring of 22. So importantly, the tax impact will not change. We have created a window, if you will, for these bonds to blend in with the existing 60 million, so the taxpayers will not feel any impact. And we're very spot on with the impact that we told the voters at the time. My eyes are not that good to read that chart, but I have it on my piece of paper. That was about $235 for the owner of a $400,000 market value home. So point being, these bonds wrap around the existing bonds so that together the payments are stable over the 20-year period and will not increase with the issuance in March of 25. Now I reference this March of 25. Stacy just went through the capital plan, and I think originally we were looking at waiting till August or September of 25 to issue these bonds, but given your construction schedule and your summer projects of which you're going to have to start paying for those in March. That's why I think it makes sense to move forward with the bond issue now. So these bonds are going to be on the 2025 levy. And the 2025 levy comes to you, the district, the first half in March of 26, followed by September of 26. So we have to pay interest on those bonds between now and when that tax levy goes in. So one of the things that happens is we will capitalize some interest on the bond issue, meaning we will take some of those proceeds, not taking anything away from your 15 million, but using those in combination with some money that the district has earned in interest in the debt service fund to help offset some of that capitalized interest. And each month, the cost of that interest is about $60,000 per month on the 15 million based on today's interest rates. So again, the payments are flat, but you will have that cost, and that's assuming we've got an estimated interest rate of about 3.46%. Or it's actually estimated at 4.33%, and that has a 25 basis point cushion in it, so excuse me. So then we look at what can we do with some of that money before we spend it, because you are going to start spending it in March, but you're not going to spend it all. As you saw from your capital plan, you're going to spend it over the next 3 years, which is a requirement when you issue tax-exempt bonds. You can earn in the treasury market on short-term investment rates over 4% right now. So you're going to be in a positive, what we call a positive arbitrage state, where you're going to have a yield of about 3.46% without a cushion, and you're going to be able to earn over 4%. And the reason is because the 15 million would qualify for the small issuer exception from arbitrage rebate, allowing you to keep some of those interest earnings. So there will be an offset to that $60,000 a month. So I think Stacy and I have talked a lot about this and thinking about the fact that, number one, the district needs to start spending the money now. Let's say you waited till August to issue these bonds. You will spend your own money, which is you have, but it will reduce your fund balance and your potential interest earnings on those funds. And then when the bonds are issued, you could reimburse yourself for those expenditures. So that is the other option of waiting. But that is going to have you forfeit any interest earnings you would have on your existing funds and give up the ability to maybe earn more than you're paying now. Hard to say what interest rates are going to do in the future. If CPI continues to come down and the trajectory we're on stays stable, that may happen. We have a new president. The tariffs are seen as highly inflationary. So whether that happens in the next year or not, we really don't know. We can't say for certainty that CPI will continue to come down and the Fed will continue to lower rates given the new administration and some of the goals as they have stated. So really hard to say interest rates are going to be lower in August than they are today. So today we know rates have come down and they are lower than they have been over the last 30 years, as we saw at the beginning of this presentation. So issuing the bonds now to address the spending that's going to have to occur as early as this March, I think makes sense to lock in the promise to the taxpayers, keep the debt steady, and hopefully earn more than you're paying on the bonds for the funds that are not spent immediately. So I'll stop there. I've been talking a lot. Questions?
Any questions from the board at this point? I don't think we have any yet.
Well, let me talk a little bit about the draft financing schedule. So tonight we're talking about the opportunity to move forward with this issue of 15 million. Also on your agenda, you have a reimbursement resolution. That allows the district to pay itself back for funds that have been spent on capital over the last 60 days from today, December 10th, and forward 3 years. So, you know, I think in some of the capital plans that you've been preparing for summer and you continue your plan, there's monies that you could pay yourself back from this bond issue for costs that have already been incurred. And then going 3 years forward, if you decide to delay the issuance, you would have the opportunity to pay yourself back from the proceeds of the bonds. So that's tonight. Then on January 14th, we would have the board consider and hopefully approve a parameters referendum bond resolution. That is the last action the board would have to take to authorize the remaining $15 million of referendum bonds. We would meet with the rating agencies the week of January 20th. We would look to get into the market the week of February 3rd, and then we would deliver the proceeds, close the issue March 5th.
Stacy, anything to add before we? Okay, I just wanted to check. And board, any questions, particularly about that timeline? So, Dr. Kay and Stacy, I assume you would like an affirmative direction from the board that we're good to move forward. So I could frame it this way. Board, any objections to following that timeline? I think we're all in favor of moving forward. So thank you for explaining it.
You're very welcome.
Clearly, I think, based on no questions. and we will move forward. So thank you, Stacy. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, which brings us to an action item which was mentioned, the resolution related to the sale of bonds and reimbursement of certain capital expenses. Can I have a motion, please?
Mr. President,
Yes, Kevin.
I recommend that the Board of Education approve the resolution expressing official intent regarding certain capital expenditures to be reimbursed from proceeds of an obligation to be issued by the district.
Thank you, Kevin. A second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Anisha. And Stacy, anything further you want to say on this?
No, I think as Liz pointed out, and so because we had issued over the 60 million in contracts, again, I refer you back to the March board meeting presentation. We have spent the full amount of proceeds plus interest earnings plus insurance reimbursement because of the fire situation at Dryden. So we have spent out the proceeds from the original bond sale, and even the bills on tonight's agenda related to construction currently are coming out of our reserves. So this resolution will allow us to reimburse ourselves for expenditures paid in the last 60 days, as well as any that we incur moving forward. We have not closed out and made the final retainage payments on our projects. Ryan is still working with Nicholas and Associates to ensure we've got all the credits that we anticipate through the project to figure out if all the allowances, we know all the allowance money wasn't spent. We need to verify what that final amount is and then reconcile all those contracts to make those final payments. So this allows it to come out of these bond proceeds.
Okay. Thank you, Stacy. Any questions before we go to a vote? All right, Lana, if you could please call the vote.
Michael?
Yes.
Cerniglia?
Yes.
Basso?
Yes.
Neerman?
Yes.
Jogi?
Yes.
Scapalato?
Yes. And thank you, Lana. The motion carries 6-0. And we're now going to the personnel and planning section of the agenda. We have an action item for the 25-26 calendar. Can I have a motion, please?
Mr. President,
Yes, Kevin.
I recommend that the Board of Education approve the 2025-2026 school calendar as presented.
Thank you, Kevin. A second, please.
I'll second.
Thank you, Anisha. And we'll welcome Kendra Perry to the board table. Welcome, Kendra. And if you could share with us the information on the calendar next year.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me tonight. I am just very excited to be bringing the calendar to all of you and let you know that really the main goal of the calendar committee is to prepare a calendar that meets the needs of our students, our community, our staff, and all of our stakeholders. we attempt to build as much continuity and cohesiveness within the structure of the school calendar to capitalize on student learning. So therefore, the calendar committee reflects on the school calendar from the previous year and engage in discussions regarding what has worked well and what we may look to change in the future. The district calendar committee is comprised of representatives from the PTA, Arlington Teachers Association, District 25 administrators, and a board member. This year, I would like to thank those participants who served on the calendar committee. For the administrative representatives, we had Donna Bingaman, Aaron Davis, Ellie Chin, Lori Namowitz, and Kim Casillo. The PTA representatives were Amanda Bonsali and Sammy Nowakowski. Members of the ATA included Allison Anderle, Allison Berg, Olivia Levy, Greg Stocco, and Casey Whitaker. And our board member representative was Rich Olinichek. So to highlight some of the specifics to this 25-26 proposed calendar, teachers and teaching assistants will report starting on Monday, August 18th, 2025. That will be an institute day. The second institute day will follow on August 19, 2025. Wednesday, August 20th will be a teaming day, and that will be building based. And then all students will start on August 21st with a full day of attendance. We greatly value the conversations between our staff and parents and want to ensure the length of the parent-teacher conferences provides all parents the time needed to have a meaningful conversation with their child's teacher. For this reason, we will go back to having 2 days of parent-teacher conferences in the fall to be held on Thursday, October 23rd from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Friday, October 24th from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. The spring parent-teacher conferences will take place by request on Monday, February 16, 2026 from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. The committee continues to support taking non-attendance days in November during the week of Thanksgiving. Both our winter and spring breaks will again match the D214 calendar to support our families who have children in both districts. On behalf of the Department of Student Learning, in partnership with D214 and the other feeder districts, the committee agreed to continue with a school improvement day following winter break to be held on Monday, January 5th, to collaborate on various professional development topics, including middle school math and our elementary adoption. The committee also agreed to take another SIP day on Monday, April 6th, where additional professional development will continue in middle school math and elementary ELA. The last day for students will be a full day of attendance on Thursday, June 4th, and the last day for staff will be a teacher's record day on Friday, June 5th. The calendar design was a collaborative process and fulfills the requirements that the Illinois State Board of Education has instituted. I'd like to again thank the calendar committee for their hard work and their willingness to explore new ideas. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions about the calendar.
Thank you, Kendra. Any questions from the board before we go to a vote? Okay. Lana, if you could please call the vote.
Cerniglia?
Yes.
Basso?
Yes.
Neerman? Yes. Jogi?
Yes.
Scapalato?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Thank you, Lana, and the motion carries 6-0. Our next item is an action item. Can I have a motion, please?
Mr. President?
Yes, Kevin.
Sorry, let me get to the right page here. I recommend that the Board of Education approve the resignation agreement with Carla Seto as presented. Did I have the name wrong? Oh, sorry, Maria Seto. I apologize.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. A second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Anisha. Kendra, if you could please present the information on the resignation agreement.
I do not have any information to present at this time.
Okay, thank you. And so we'll go to a vote. Lana, if you could please call the vote.
Basso?
Yes.
Neerman?
Yes.
Jogi?
Yes.
Scapalato?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Cerniglia?
Yes.
Thank you, Lana, and the motion carries 6-0. We've now arrived at the superintendent's report portion of the agenda, and the first item is our Freedom of Information Act report. So Dr. Kay, take us through those items.
Yes, good evening, everyone. We had 4 FOIAs since our last meeting, and all of those were responded to in time. So without any questions, we will move on from that information item. And then I have item number 2, where I want to circle back to a third-party independent audit of board policies and administrative procedures that was on a future topic agenda that we are now bringing tonight. But before I do that, I just want to mention a couple things that have been going on that I've been participating in throughout the district. One, I had a chance to attend the ABC 25 Foundation meeting, and I just like to remember and remind everyone what ABC stands for. It's quick to just say it, but it really resonates with me when I think about it stands for Building a Better Community. So a better community. So ABC 25 has continued to support and fund a lot of great innovative grants for our schools. So we thank you, Gina, for your contribution and the entire committee's great work in supporting our schools. We also had a chance this weekend to get out in the community. A couple board members and myself went to the senior center, and we had a chance to meet and greet the community and what we call the board coffee. I had never been to the senior center before. I am looking forward to those days in my life because that senior center was very cool. We had 4 community members come out and talk, which was great to be able to dialogue with them about their concerns and their topics. So I'm looking forward to the future coffees that we have. And I do enjoy that we get out in the community to be on the turf of our community, which is awesome. Principal search, we have 2 ongoing principal searches, one at South Middle School and the other at Dryden. Both are in full swing. In the next 2 days, we will do some screening interviews for both positions here at district office. And next week, assuming we have candidates we are satisfied with, we will bring candidates to the building level, and we are asking for a lot of input from both the Dryden staff, the Dryden community, and the South staff and community. We're excited to near the finish line and hopefully in January be able to come and present and introduce 2 new leaders in our school district. So crossing my fingers that all goes well over the next 2 weeks with our interviews, and hopefully in January we'll have the opportunity to welcome 2 new leaders into our district. That wouldn't start until July of 2025. And just as a reminder, the reason those positions are open is because of 2 very exciting retirements from Dr. Morrison and Kemi Sessler. And then last, on a sad note, I had the opportunity to join a celebration of life for one of our champions of children, Mary Beth Anderson, who was a principal at Olive Elementary School. When I started in this district, she was instrumental in helping shape what this district is all about and how leaders help support teachers. She knew literally every kid's name. She knew every kid's birthday. I often will say if that school wasn't already named after someone, somebody would come and recommend that as an option. The celebration of life was truly that. It was a great celebration of her and her contributions to this community. It was a fantastic event, and that's the way she wanted it. So I just wanted to mention how exciting that celebration of life was. And the PTA Council is accepting donations in order to give scholarships in her name, which will be an exciting continuation of her ability to continue impacting kids in this community, which is very exciting. All right, now let's go to my presentation on the third-party audits. Can I get the clicker? Thank you. So the information that is inside of this presentation should not be new to anyone. The information is really a summary of audits that we have completed in the past that have all been presented to the board, and this slide shows all 9 of the different audits that we've done. I'll just read them off so you're aware. The ROE audit, done every 4 years, focuses on personnel, student learning, and student services. We've done a cybersecurity audit. We do the annual financial audit, food nutrition services audit, special education audit. I don't know if you recall, we did that to look at the services that we are offering in NSSEO is who we use to conduct that audit. The life safety audit is a regular audit that we engage in. The multilingual services audit, we were supposed to get the results of the one completed this year today, but they're on a little delay. So it's been a while since we've had that one done. We're excited to get the results from that. The curriculum equity audits and the advanced learning audit were things that we as a board and we as a staff wanted to do. So those aren't annually done. Those are choices we made to investigate both the curriculum and the advanced learning in our district to give us suggestions for how to improve. So the reason this topic is with us tonight is, again, there was an interest among the board to consider a third-party audit of our administrative procedures, our exhibits, and our board policies. So I just wanted to show you all that's already being done to look at all of our board policies, and starting off with the ROE audits, the 5 major areas that are concentrated on for that audit: students, staff, policy and governance, health and life safety, instructional programs. I give a little bit about what takes place and how that audit is done. I participated when I was the Assistant Superintendent for Personnel in the gathering and collecting of all the data for personnel. So I got to experience what that was like in that position. And I can tell you that we rely heavily on Lana to not only understand all that is collected and needed, but she also organizes it so smoothly for all of us involved. I know I speak for all of the assistant superintendents and the previous superintendent. It was much easier knowing Lana had it all organized and weeks in advance told us what we would need to do. So I appreciate all the organization that she did, which the regional office now uses to share with other districts, so it's very organized like District 25. So I appreciate you, Lana, for all your organization back in the day, and I know we'll have to do it again in a couple years. Here's an example of what the website looks like, where we upload all of the information. So on the left-hand blue bar, I've clicked on 100, the section for students, and then the first section, 101. You'll notice in the middle column, there's 101A, B, and C. So it goes on to describe some of the topics that it's looking for, and then on the right are the documents that Lana uploads for us. So we give it to her in the paper version, sometimes we give her electronic, and then she uploads those for the regional office to then go in, review it, and so you can see that there's in progress, yes, no, or not applicable. So there are multiple pages that look just like this, and this is what the ROE goes through and looks to see, have we submitted the right documents? Visually, the dashboard looks really nice when it's all finished, and you see those big green rainbows, and they all look like they're complete and ready. On the left-hand column, I didn't click on 100 students. You can see those are the 5 sections, and then underneath those are all of the data that we upload for those sections. The cybersecurity audit, Chris presented this one back in, I believe it was 2023. The focus on these for the cybersecurity audit, we want to make sure we have strong cybersecurity foundation. The district has established a solid foundation for cybersecurity with a culture of awareness and a focus on best practice. We're looking for minimal vulnerabilities in our system. The audit revealed a low incidence of actionable vulnerabilities and default login credentials, indicating a well-maintained network infrastructure. We're looking for effective incident response planning. The district has a detailed incident response plan in place to address potential security breaches, and obviously we're looking for ongoing improvement. Then the audit identified areas for further improvement, including enhanced account management practices, vendor risk management, and network monitoring. So the district is committed to implementing the recommendations and actions to strengthen its cybersecurity defenses and protect sensitive information. By prioritizing cybersecurity, District 25 aims to safeguard its digital assets and maintain a secure learning environment. You can see the company in the upper left-hand corner that we use and the cost of that audit. The financial audit. I wish it was this simple, just down to a couple bullets. It is clearly not that simple. But the purpose of the audit is to provide the board, you, with confidence in your financial statements. And the process of the audit requires meetings with management, data from the district systems, knowledge of district operating environment, Baker-Tilly risk assessment procedures, and analyzing the key risk areas. The Food and Nutrition Services audit. This is conducted by the Illinois State Board of Education. It's done every 3 years. The last audit was in February of 2024, so recently. It was nice that Sandy put some of the policies that are impacted by this Food and Nutrition Services audit. And at the bottom there, she listed the other procedures for the policies that were impacted. Special education audit, as I briefly mentioned, NSSEO was the group that we asked to do our audit. And what we saw in the special education audit demonstrated lots of positive outcomes across several key areas: high family satisfaction, effective eligibility and evaluation process, strong parent involvement, a commitment to least restrictive environment, and a strong inclusive practice throughout District 25. Overall, the findings in this audit indicated that our district has a strong special education program that is focused on meeting the needs of all students. The life safety audit, which we have talked about a couple times already, is conducted by our Regional Office of Education, and it is completed in October. It requires the help of a lot of our building management, our FOMs. It takes Ryan and Daniel, and our FOMs walk through the building with the auditor, which is nice for them to get firsthand knowledge of what they're looking for and where the improvements are needed. We are pleased to report that these minimal findings reflect the diligent efforts of our maintenance and custodial staff in keeping our buildings safe and reliable for students. Overall, this life safety inspection audit affirms our commitment to maintaining a safe and reliable learning environment thanks to the dedicated attention of our facilities team. There's an indicator of the checklist that they're going over when they're doing the walkthrough. And here's a sample of what we received. I believe this one is Olive. So there were 3 identified issues at Olive. You'll see the glossary number, the location of where the issue is, and what's cited as the concern. And then they give us a certain amount of time to go and address the concern so that they know we're actually following through on the issues that they've identified. Multilingual services audit. Again, we just completed this one, again, for this year, which is fantastic. They will speak to building principals, classroom teachers, obviously Shab. They speak to me, and they have an interest in seeing not only what are we offering, but are we hiring people that are certified to teach our kids. So it's exciting to know that there is an organization dedicated to making sure our kids are receiving the right instruction by highly qualified and certified staff. I believe these last 2, we have spent a lot of time at III focused on the benefits that we learned from the curriculum equity audit and the advanced learning audit. The curriculum equity audit has been a benefit to us. Looking at data and document reviews, looking at curriculum program review, looking at the literacy and social studies programs that we offer, looking at what types of books and curriculum we offer in the LMC, and then action planning to identify gaps in our curriculum. So by conducting this audit, District 25 seeks to create a more inclusive and equitable learning environment for all of our students. And the 9th audit that we are looking at is the advanced learning audit. And you might remember this visual that was brought here to the board when it was presented, the results were presented to us. And one of the target areas was looking at the MTSS process we have in place to support students with needs, but we didn't have an MTSS process outside of those who qualified for accelerated learning in math and reading. We didn't have what is the donut hole. We didn't have supports for kids who didn't qualify for the accelerated level. So that is something that we tried to target with staffing, with the advanced learning specialist, and the instructional coaches. So that is an ongoing current project. I know I breezed through that very quickly. None of those should have been new. Are there any questions about those?
Mr. President?
Yes, Anisha.
Yeah, I don't have a question, but I just have a comment. Thank you, Dr. K, for kind of pulling the curtains back and reminding us these are things that we've seen, but it's great to kind of see the comprehensive audits that go on, who's doing them, you know, that there's a system in place for all this. So it brings a lot of reassurance that, you know, we have kind of checks and balances and everybody's doing what we're supposed to be doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes, Kevin.
Dr. K, will echo Anisha's appreciation of you compiling all this data in one place for us. Just a couple of questions. I know you mentioned that several of these are mandatory audits, several of them are annual, some of them are every few years. Did you mention, is the cybersecurity audit, is that mandatory, or is that something that the district chooses to participate in?
So that is one that we chose to participate in. That is not an automatic audit. I would be surprised if in the state of Illinois they didn't eventually require it because of the insurance costs for those who are hit by challenges in their software. But currently that is something that our tech department had an interest in doing for our own security. Our insurance also will make recommendations on whether or not we should. They also work through our tech department, will send phishing scams to our staff to see how vulnerable we are with our current staff. So that happens regularly, but the audit does not happen regularly.
Okay, and then I noticed you said we are currently in the process of a multilingual audit for 24-25.
Yep.
And I think you said the previous one was in 15-16.
It was pre-COVID, yep.
Is there, moving forward, is there a plan to do those more frequently than every 10 years, 9 to 10 years?
Yeah, so that first note up there says the last one was done in 2015-16. The expectation was that they were going to be here during the COVID years. They obviously paused that, so we're off schedule at this point. I believe it's every 3 to 4 years that the ML audit is supposed to be completed. It was not supposed to be almost 10 years between the two.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Dr. K, a question that I have is maybe building off what Kevin, I think, was pointing out. You know, a lot of these have intervals at which we do them, and sometimes they have celebrations, right? And sometimes there are calls to action. The one I'm thinking of that we did and learned a lot, and I think there were celebrations there, was a special education audit.
Yeah.
And that was a bespoke thing that we decided to do. I wonder if that one, or are there other ones that we might consider that are not mandatory, that we might put an interval on them, such as that one? I don't know what that interval is, and maybe that's just an open question, not for today to answer, but
Yeah, I actually think it's a great conversation. I think not only the special ed audit, I think the last two, the curriculum equity audit and the advanced learning audit, would be something that we should circle back to. The question would be how soon. So I think having conversations with staff and our DSL and DSS department would be critical. I could see doing a special ed audit in the next 2 years because the number of students that are qualifying continues to increase. So I feel like that would be an advantage to see not only the identification process, are we continuing to do that well, but are the programs we're offering students and support still benefiting them to the maximum capacity? Having walked through minor recently, there are lots of great things happening, and I've also had the chance to walk through Windsor recently, and I think the number of classrooms we've added in our instructional programs continues to grow, and I wonder, are we reaching a capacity there? So I would be curious, if we did a special ed audit, could they help us look at where you reach capacity and where you may need to add programs in other buildings?
Thank you for those thoughts. And maybe you mentioned the curriculum equity audit. And I remember when we heard that audit and when we reviewed it here, it wasn't an all-encompassing equity audit, right? It was focused in a very particular area. I wonder, have there been any discussions at this point at either focusing on equity in different areas or just more broadly in the district? In terms of an audit.
Yeah.
I know it's always a focus, for sure.
Yeah, and I think I heard the question correctly. With regards to an audit,
yes.
No. We've not had internal conversations about, do we need to engage in an audit in X arena?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's possible. I just have not been a part of those conversations at this point.
Sure. And I think reflecting on these, I'm reflecting on maybe the spirit of why this came in front of the board, and I think looking at the audits is a place to start, but or a place to have the discussion. But also, I just want to recognize that, at least in terms of accountability of the board, we hear a lot of other reports, and we don't call them audits.
Yeah.
But about achievement and in other areas. But just I want to recognize that we do hear about those things and ask questions about those things, and I know the staff is always reflecting and improving based on what they find. So.
And I guess I would just add, based on what you shared, we have a review cycle of all of our curriculum areas. And I think that has the potential to reveal maybe we do need to audit. And I thought of one that we probably haven't investigated carefully in a while, and that would be our middle school, some of our programs at the middle school. So I feel like that review process in the Department of Student Learning could help reveal areas that we may want to investigate further. We'll still continue the review process, look at the curriculum needs, but I feel like years ago we went through a significant change in our offerings of the extension courses, the extracurricular, the encore, the STEM. So I feel like it's worth reviewing. I'm not looking to make wholesale changes, but I do feel like through the review we look at, are there changes that are needed, and an audit could help as the next phase of that review.
Other questions or thoughts?
Mr. President?
Yeah, Kevin.
I apologize if I'm kind of just rephrasing something you were saying. I think I'm kind of piggybacking onto what you were saying more so. Is just looking at the fact that we have several of these audits being mandated, others being audits that we have chosen as a board or as an administration or in tandem to undergo for the betterment of our teaching and learning in District 25. I think it's great to see that we are taking advantage of opportunities to examine what we're doing in the district, because as a board, obviously we are accountable to the students, the staff, the parents, and the community members, and I think it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we are covering all bases, dotting all I's, crossing all T's, and meeting our own expectations as well as the community's expectations of us. I'm curious, Dr. K, are you aware of any other recommended, whether by ROE, whether by ISB, or any other organizations recommended audits that other districts might undergo that District 25 does not currently or has not recently undergone?
Yeah, I think one of the more common audits that's being done now, we did, which is the equity audit. Ours focused on curriculum, but there are other equity audits you can do. So I feel like that is one of the more common ones that's being done in neighboring communities. So outside of that, I'm not aware of any others that are more popular, but I think equity audits are still growing.
Anisha, do you have a comment?
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to add to that, Mr. President. Thank you, Dr. K. You know, when we go to the equity audit in August 2021, when we contracted, public consulting group, it was their recommendation, because at that time, there's so much to look at an equity audit, and we took a small bite size of just looking at curriculum and library resources at the time. And it was their recommendation as well, the consulting group, to say, hey, it's beneficial to do a holistic equity audit, looking at, practices, policies, and our district has focused so much on sense of belonging. Yeah. And even in the thought exchange, there were gaps that came up in that sense of belonging piece, where an equity audit would look at even going out to do focus groups in our community to say, where are the gaps? Where are you sensing those gaps? And where are the conversations happening at the dinner tables that we're not even thinking about in the classroom? So just like you had said, kind of doing a more holistic approach, as was recommended by the public consulting group, because we looked at a really narrow focus, right, to kind of open it up just to make sure that every child in our district, feels emotionally supported.
Agree.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anisha. Maybe to finish, of course, there's other comments. We can go to those, but I just want to recognize to you, Dr. K, and through you, the staff, the time investment and expertise investment that goes into these audits, and just the willingness to be part of a culture of continuous improvement for the benefit of our students and parents and community. So it's significant. It really is. So kudos to you and the staff.
Mr. President.
Oh, please, Gina, yes.
Just really quick, because we've been talking about where are certain things going.
Yeah.
So one that is still U.S.-based further out, but that Europe and Australia and even California has now issued regulations, is in that ESG space. Mm. So I think our equity covers a piece of the S, but the environmental, as we look at that 5-year, 10-year plan, capital plan, and we're looking at boilers, we should start thinking about the E and the carbon net zero and making sure facilities are up to date so that we don't find ourselves coming up against yet another significant impact with 9 buildings.
Yeah.
So something to just stick in the back of our head. I think the G has covered all of our governance.
Yeah.
Pieces are, at least have a piece, but I just did a quick search just to make sure I had all the components. But I think that that's something that, as we prep on where that's going, because California has in fact passed the regulations.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I know that everything's coming on board big. Next year's a big year for Europe, so it's only a matter of time before it crosses the pond. And it's coming via California, which again isn't surprising considering Prop 65 and the way that things kind of move through the U.S. I think we have time, but it is something that we should consider.
appreciate you bringing that up. And you, as a board, have supported a small shift as we looked at getting new vehicles for our courier. We transitioned into electric vehicles, and I'm not aware of that decision as going poorly, so I would anticipate as we see if those hold up over time, that we would come back with more ideas in supporting that effort.
Well, thank you, Dr. Kay, for your time and energy collecting this again and reminding the board of all these audits. I don't know that we're giving specific direction today, but certainly expressing an interest in exploring areas that you identify. I think the board is here to support it. And again, grateful for the culture of continuous improvement.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so we are at the second community input section of the agenda. We heard from that person, so. All right, so with that, we are at the future agenda items, and just to check any new topics that we need to consider as a board for future agenda item. Okay, seeing none, then we are moving back into closed session. So can I have a motion to move, again, back into closed session, please?
Mr. President?
Yes, Kevin.
I recommend that the board return to closed session to continue discussing the previous topics.
Thank you, Kevin. And a second, please.
A second.
Thank you, Anisha. And I'll remind the community that the board cannot take any action during closed, and we will not be taking any action when we return to open session afterwards. And Lana, if you could please call the roll.
Neerman, Jogi, Scapalato,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Cerniglia,
Yep.
Faso.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. The motion carries 6-0, and have a good evening.